is that correct? I'm supposed to do that, right? Okay, thank you. Kevin, and second Tony, and all in favor? Okay, thank you. Accepting the agenda. Great. And did everyone have a chance to read the minutes? Were we? Yes. Did it? Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any issues or with the minutes from our last meeting? No. Okay. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes? Thank you, Tony, and the seconder. Thank you, Ken, and all in favor? Thank you. Okay, so moving on, we have two items on the agenda tonight, DP 001265 and DP 001268. And Sadie will be introducing both of them. So Sadie, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First item is development permit application DP 1265. It's for a ground-oriented multifamily development consisting of 4 detached 2-story dwellings with a shared yard located at 220 Halliburton Street. The subject property is located on the west side of Halliburton Street, south of Milton Street, and across Halliburton from Deverell Square Gyro to Park. It is zoned R5, 3 and 4 unit residential, and is designated neighborhood in the official community plan. It falls within Development Permit Area 9 for multifamily. The subject property falls within the South End Neighborhood Plan. The South End Urban Design Guidelines and the General Development Permit Area Design Guidelines apply to the proposed development. There is one proposed variance associated with the proposal to reduce the required front yard setback as follows. Within the R5 zone, the minimum required front yard setback is 7 meters where a property line abuts a major road when the dedication to achieve the required right-of-way width has not occurred to facilitate the widening of the major road. Further, front porches are not permitted to project within the front yard setback for multifamily developments. As such, a minimum front yard setback of 2.8 meters is proposed, a variance of 4.2 meters. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sadie Robinson. So I'll ask who's presenting to first introduce themselves just for the record, and then to go ahead and share your screen.
Sure. It's Raymond DeBilt here. I'm going to get Aziz, who's a recent intern in our office, will be presenting the project. Just like to introduce Pavan. He's the owner of the property. And we got Rasher Dahl, who's doing landscape architect. And we got Mark Warbrook doing the civil. So we'll each give them a chance. We do have a copy of their drawings, Aziz has as well. So be kind to Aziz. He's probably nervous being the first time. So we'll go from there. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you for giving me a chance to present this for you today. Please let me share my screen. Everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay. So before we jump into form and character, I would like just to give you an overview about the site context. So this vacant lot is located on Halliburton Street, adjacent to Deverell Square Park, with a view to the ocean. The subject property was Halliburton Street at the front and the lane, and a lane at the rear of the lot. Near all the essential amenities and convenience stores connected to a proper transit system. However, the site is characterized as South End neighborhood at Zone 5. So looking at the lot from the survey plan, you can notice slight slope from the west to the east. We have some street view just to give you an idea about the site surrounded.
Just interrupt a sec, Aziz. Sadie, do you have to give us permission for us to share the screen?
Through the chair, I don't believe so. I think Aziz should be able to share his screen. It says that one participant can share at a time on mine.
So you
Should be a
can
little green box at the bottom middle of the screen.
Yeah, I shared my screen.
Oh, okay.
Even me it's shared now, but I'm not sure why. So can you see?
Oh, it just popped up. Yep.
Okay, so let me start again. Sorry about that.
I see all your emails. Yeah.
Yeah.
Echo's emails.
So now you can see the presentation. Okay,
Perfect.
sorry about that. So about can you see my screen now?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I think Raymond, I have problem with my
Monitor.
yeah my things. I'll stop sharing and share again. Uh, start. Yeah, now I think it's shared. Sorry about that. So can you hear me, Raymond? Okay.
Yeah.
So that like fast overview about the context for the site. It is a vacant lot located in Halberton Street, adjacent to the park, and has an ocean view. The subject property abuts Halberton Street from the front, as has a lane at the rear side of the building. This site is characterized as South End neighborhood with zone R5. Moving to the survey, you can notice we have like slight slope from the west to the east of the lot. And here is some street view for the site. You can see this
Are
one.
you guys able to see his screen? Yeah? No?
Yeah, I can see it.
No, we can't though.
No.
So I could share my screen and you just tell me when you want to move the screen, see if that works any better or not. I'll try, see if that helps or not. If I can find it. Can everybody see that?
We can see it now, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
So
you just tell me where you want to go. So hopefully you can.
If you like to maximize your screen, it's the menu bars.
Yep. Hold on.
Can you go for the presentation itself?
Huh? You want to do it here?
No, the presentation itself. The file city presentation.
Oh. Bear with us for a sec. It's just loading up here. Just I got to figure out how to make it bigger now. All right. I've never used this disease. So.
Raymond, have you looked under view at the top? So I'm not sure if it's the same, but sometimes it'll say view slideshow underneath.
Oh, for the software?
For the
there's a tab view to the right of home.
Yeah.
And just if you click that, it'll probably give you an option
of home.
So just along your menu along the top.
Yep.
You've got home as the tab that's raised. Can you go over one more to view and see if it gives you a view slideshow? I think.
I don't have a home. I have a file. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, file and then
slideshow. Okay.
Yeah, and then go view is the third one over.
This one? Yeah. Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Us old people.
And then you'll just need to, I don't know if you have to reshare your screen. I'm not sure. Maybe not.
Oh.
Maybe just let us know when you see it in the slideshow and then we can confirm if it shows that way on our end.
Oh, okay.
Because right now it's still the original screen.
What do I do from my computer? Not showing. Oh, it's not showing.
Maybe do the presentation.
New share, make a new share, and share this.
Presenting.
Yeah. Still not sharing.
That worked.
Now it's
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I don't know about that.
Not showing.
Is there anything that's different, Aziz, than being just on a PDF?
Yeah. Of course not.
I can just show you a PDF. Yeah? No.
Raymond, if it helps also, we can pull up our design panel package.
Sure.
I think now my screen is shared.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry again about that. I don't know what's happening with the Zoom. So let's move to the context. Yeah, as you can see, this lot is vacant lot located in Harbington Street, adjacent to the park, and has an ocean view. And this subject property has like a road in Haliburton and has a lane at the rear. Looking at the survey plan, you can notice we have a slight slope from the west to the east of the building. So we have street view showing the site context and surrounded. You can see the rear view. And I now want to talk about the design concept. We took into account the design guideline principle, like as adding a range of housing choices and affordability in the south end, and Haliburton Street as a corridor as green and pedestrian greenway. We came up with the concept that instead of having a fourplex with shared wall, we decided to go with an affordable option for a single family dwelling. Include semi-private and shared outdoor spaces as an efficient and contemporary interpretation to the old minor cottage originally constructed in the south end neighborhood. So looking at the aerial view, you can notice we located 2 units along Haliburton Street with an access to the rear unit via the landscape center walkway, or you can call it courtyard. Access to parking via one-way lane, City 2.5 SRW provided along the street frontage for future roadway upgrade. So walking into the site plan in detail, you can notice a pathway between buildings that provide access to all the building, common parking area, a central shared courtyard and patio provide socialization and kids zone between buildings. Covered entrance porches provide seating and pedestrian street interaction, emphasizing Halliburton Street as a pedestrian greenway. A surface parking area with 6 stalls include 2 electrical vehicle charging station is located behind the building and is accessed from the lane out of sight from the street and the main living area following the design guideline. So temporary bike parking is provided on patio with long-term bike storage in the unit basement. The refuse recycling and organic container will be located at the rear unit, at the rear of unit 103 and 104, adjacent. And during the collection day, we are proposing to have a grass grid paver on Halliburton Street Boulevard. Moving to the form and massing, our intent of the design is to minimize the effect of dense large form of townhouses. So we formed the building with a traditional sloped roof, but in the modern vocabulary of durable material. Simple material and color used with contrasting color accent to differentiate the unit. So large balcony for outdoor living area are fully covered for weather protection without limiting deep interior daylight ventilation. Roof and thin wall rejection, fascia and soffit treatment provide warmth of wood and improve the privacy with adjacent neighbors. So showing some 3D images for this. This is from the southeast of Halliburton, and this is courtyard entry from the boulevard. And we have this view showing the rear elevation at the rear parking area with the gate adjacent to the lane to provide more security to the site. And this image showing the courtyard also. And this one, the courtyard access between the building. And this is the context 3D showing aerial view for the site. And we have our elevation showing the material that we use. We use fiber cement panel cladding with matched color metal trim for it. The color scheme is black with a cedar wood for the inner wall of the house. And we have 4 unique accent color for each of the units. And the balcony guardrail also provides for privacy, semi-security, finished with powder-coated aluminum and translucent glass. So it's the second elevation. And also we have the floor plan for the building. We have unfinished basement and we have level 1 for the living and level 2 for the bedroom. So I will handle the landscape portion for Rocher, speak about it. Can you hear me, Rocher?
Do you have thank you.
Okay.
So as you've seen, it's a rather modern and straight, clean line kind of an architectural design, and the landscape has been conceived in a very similar way to offer a rather straight, well-defined structure in the planting as well as the hardscape layout. The hardscape surfaces are used to delineate the movement patterns, that hierarchy of movement, the public areas having a color which is distinct from the private patios and courtyards, and the parking has a distinct paving system of its own. The central path, which kind of offers movement between respective units, is treated with both textural use of plants, majority of which are native plants of quick establishment character, with flanked rather modern small planting interfacing the movement lines. And the tree structure used in a way columnar bow hall placed towards the movement here. A symbolic Christmas tree, Piscia glauca, placed in the middle, which could be used as communal gathering spaces as well. And as you can see, most of the open spaces which separate the patios or the private areas are treated with native shrubby kind of look, with reasonable volume to establish separation and privacy. As you move towards the parking, it is flanked again with some native vegetation, which kind of grows quickly, establishes quickly, and creates a soft interface between the buildings. Out here towards Halliburton, there's a multi-layered planting which allows for separation from the sidewalk, allowing for private enjoyment of individual spaces and patios. There is a level difference, and which are treated with steps both as an entry courtyard and then eventually the patios leading to either sides. As one passes on the sidewalk, what one experiences a scale increase from lower heuchera and then eventually blue oat grass, other grasses, and eventually leading up to taller shrubs next to a retaining wall, Allen block retaining wall that contains the level at the top. Similarly, on either side of both east and west interfaces to the adjacent lots, one needed to create a separation because this is a rather dense development compared to other single family neighbor units on either side. We've used columnar taxus, which is punctuated by other native plants in the middle. That by far kind of summarizes our landscape approach. There are Bollard Street plant. Could you move ahead and show the lighting plan if you could?
Of course, yeah.
So there are bollards treated towards the central spine that offers visibility, safety, and movement access to all participants and residents, users as they move through the central areas. That kind of covers it. There are colors of the paving systems that are used, which create hierarchy. And if you want to go to the next slide. These are the fences, kind of keeping with the modern architecture that the project provides on either sides, and very modern Allen block look towards the front, which is also in the foreground, is treated with plants as we talked about earlier. Thank you.
And I think, Mark, we have your civil work slide if you want to speak about them. Is Mark here?
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, it's quite simple.
We have it if you want to talk about it.
There's nothing too complicated on this one. We're proposing a underwater storage in a rock pit of about 12 cubic meters of rock to handle the increase in runoff rate due to the development. The servicing is more or less in place. There's actually redundancy in the storm servicing right now, and the buildings are not going to be sprinklered because they're single family units. So it's fairly simple from a servicing perspective, and because of the unit count, there's no frontage works required as far as we understand.
Okay.
So, Raymond, do you want to add?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, yeah, it'll probably, some things can come up that we can talk about.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. If you wouldn't mind not sharing your screen, sharing, or however we would like to say that. Thank you. Okay, so first, do any of the panel members have any questions for staff before we begin our comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any. All right, so I'm going to ask, we'll go through each panel member and hear their comments, and there may be a need for some response from the applicant, and we'll just play it by ear. But I'd also ask the design panel members to comment on the variance as well. And just as a reminder, that was that French, correct me if I'm wrong, Sadie, the front yard setback variance. Okay, so if after your comments, if you don't mind giving your opinion on that as well. And I will start with Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
you for the presentation. Very nice. I want to start by saying I actually really like this project. I like what you've done with it. I like the simplicity, and to an architect, simplicity is a good thing, of the forms, and the how you've been able to create the muse through the building with the LA. I even really like how you've adjusted the massing of the building so that the rear buildings are a little wider to kind of force the perspective through the site. I really appreciate that. The only concern or I have is how far towards the front of the site the buildings extend, particularly since they're essentially 2.5 stories of a single facade and a single material with little expression other than the openings for the balconies. So my only comment or thought would be the preference would be to slide the buildings back. I know it's very difficult with the parking, and you'd have to rotate the stalls and eliminate the fencing. But I'm very concerned about how far forward, and you can see on your plans how much you're extending to the front of the site beyond the adjacent neighbors. I also always want to be very respectful to the city for their road widening easements. So that is my main concern is how close to the front. Otherwise, I really appreciate the massing and the siding of the individual units. I appreciate the color scheme that you're throwing in to help identify the units and kind of contrast playfully against the more monolithic coloration and massing of the building. But that's all for me. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Oh, and I guess then, what is your comment on the variance? I suppose you answered that in your comment.
Yes, I would prefer to see the building shifted back to it, even if it's not the full the full 7 meters requested along the active street. If it can be minimized, I guess the actual is 4.2 meters when the applicant had mentioned like a 1 point something, but because of the balconies, it's actually a bigger easement, a bigger variance than requested. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, and Kevin, I'll ask you to go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. A very nice application, very well presented, even with the hiccups at the start. I really like the siting of the buildings, how you prepared it to create that major corridor coming into the central area, and how you develop the site to allow the landscape architect to work his magic on the project. Form and character, I really, really like the minimalist approach, the contemporary concepts to it. I really feel that Raymond, how you dealt with that, it works really, really well. Landscape concept, the only questions I have are, there's really no labeling that I could find as to what the major trees are on the building. So if the landscape architect could tell me what the trees are, the major trees, and where they're located, that's the only thing I really want to find out. That's the only question. It's not major. So we're sure.
Can I interject and just let you know so that you know? It's on L3, which is the planting plan, and there's a list of trees, shrubs, and labeling on there. So
So the two street trees, what are those?
Serviceberry.
Okay, and down the major tree in the middle of the courtyard?
Yeah, that is Piscia glauca.
Okay, and the two other trees in the courtyard?
They are Acer rubrum boho.
Okay. I was just curious because the one plan showed that there was only one major tree in the courtyard and it didn't have any, and the other two labeled. And so that was the only thing with that. So I just want to make sure that was addressed. But all I could say is I really like this project. It's totally polished in my opinion. And I really like that whether it was through Raymond or the developer that they allowed the landscape concept both in softscape and hardscapes to really carry through the site. And I really like it. So it's a really nice project. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Kevin. And how about
and I definitely support the variance because of the effort that the landscape architect did with the landscape concept in the front, both in hardscape and hardscape and softscape. So I really support the landscape or the variance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for your comments. And Ken, would you like to go ahead, please?
I too like the overall concept of the architects and the presentation, which was very clear, and I like the idea that they showed the existing and relationship of the new to the existing. And I agree with the other two, Kevin and Jason, about the simplicity of the buildings. And the only, I guess the only thing that bothers me is all the blackness. And I don't know if you can break it up, but you can see by the perspective they show between the buildings how black the walls are, and two-story walls of black siding that they're using may or may not be nice in the rainy, dark winter days that we have most, 4 or 5 months of the year. And that's my only concern. I agree with Kevin about the setbacks. I don't think the prospect of Halliburton expanding as a major thoroughfare, which doesn't lead anywhere other than unless you're going into town, north into town, going south, it doesn't go anywhere. So I don't believe that would ever probably become a major thoroughfare. So I would support the variance because I think the porches and I like the idea of those porches in that community. The one thing I have about landscaping on a development like this, so we only have 4 units and it's low income. So the landscaping has to be maintained by volunteers. You're not going to be able to afford a contractor, contract coming in every 2 weeks to landscape the site because that again adds to the cost, and you don't have the number of units to support a landscape contractor or a strata management firm to come in and manage all that. So, because I've seen other units, and I know from experience from friends who are in a 10-unit development, and they have to depend on volunteers to maintain the landscaping. If someone doesn't want to volunteer or doesn't want to increase the fees to maintain the landscaping, then you have a problem. And so I worry a little bit about how this landscaping can be maintained. If you have 4 compatible families that are really interested in gardening and landscaping, so much the better. But it is going to be dependent on the owners of the units to maintain that landscaping. That's all.
So my just a quick response to that would be that we've tried using a lot of native vegetation, Vaccinium ovatum, Rosa rugosa, all the other stuff that requires rather minimal irrigation and survive dry spells of a season as well, just for this exact reason that maintenance is going to require less maintenance and produce less leaf litter. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken, for your comments. Do you have any, were you finished?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Tyler,
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't have much to add other than what's been said, but yeah, thanks so much for the presentation. I too actually shared the concerns of Jason on this one. I know we've disagreed a little bit about it in the past. I initially was very concerned because a good portion of Halliburton is sort of slated as to be redone as part of the waterfront walkway project at some point. So while I don't think it would be a major road for automobile use, undoubtedly there'd be cycle facilities, but it actually turns off before that. So I'm less concerned, but I do still agree with Jason that it is I have some concern there, but I understand also it's challenging with the parking. So I'm curious if other panel members have the same concern. Happy to go with the flow, but it stuck out for me as well.
So we'll make some comments, I guess, after all the panel members talk. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler Brown. And lastly, Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Excellent project. I won't repeat all the compliments on the architectural design, colors, form, and character, and that kind of stuff. Job well done. I would like to confirmation from the architect, because this form of roof is very detail dependent, and I just wanted to confirm, one, that the roof is metal of some kind, and that the same metal siding is continuing down the sides of the building, and that the gutters and rainwater leaders will be the same color as the metal. So it does in fact look like it resembles your beautiful renderings. Could you confirm that, please?
Yeah, it's all the same material. Okay. I guess it depends whether or not we go to a higher performance building envelope. We could do a concealed gutter in the rain screen that's insulated, so we'd have enough room so we don't even see the rainwater leader. And if not, then we'd have to custom form a rainwater leader and matching pipe in the same metal. So that's why we're staying with standard colors. It's probably it's not quite as dark as maybe what you see on there, because it's more of a dark charcoal color, standard color.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just would like to see what you're showing us actually materialize on site, because again, it can be compromised as you go down the road.
Yeah.
My other area of concern that nobody mentioned before, but it's sort of leapt off the page of me, but maybe it's just a personal thing. The privacy issue. These units are very close together, obviously, and to have those 4 patios in the middle of the site, cheek by jowl, as it were, especially with 2 of them appear to be a couple of feet higher than the others, looking down, etc. I find that unless you get 4 families, as somebody said earlier on the panel, who are really thick as thieves and all friendly and everything, the privacy is going to be pretty well non-existent. And if I could tie this into Jason's comment about the front yard setback, if it weren't for my privacy concern, I wouldn't be concerned about the setback variance at all. I think it's acceptable. But if the front units could move back slightly, that would improve the front yard setback and increase those front unit patio areas so they're more usable. They're quite limited, as you've shown with the furniture layout. Possibly eliminate their rear patios to give increased patios to the rear units. I don't know if that's coming across clearly, but basically you'd have, every unit would only have 1 patio, but they would all be bigger patios. And in so doing, you would slightly increase the front yard setback. So I don't know if that's something you thought about or considered.
Yeah, no, it was a discussion in the office, whether we only have 1 at the back. And I think There's more of a thought of these are more compatible. Someone who's looking for an independent building, almost like a micro home, but they're a bit bigger than that. So they'd be more family oriented given the neighborhood. And so the idea was that the kids would probably run around in the back and play around there and keep them off the street and stuff like that. But it's certainly possible to still change, I think. And we looked at trying to screen them or make translucent balcony railings and the glass in the rear units, but they still have some views out from there in between, because it is from the lane you can see the ocean looking to the southwest a bit. So yeah, I think you can deal with that. I mean, we've done, if you live in very tight quarters in other places in the world, you find ways to make privacy. So
I appreciate that, but I mean, you know, why create a problem that may not occur, but maybe it will. I mean, if you can avoid it in the first place, then you'll never have a problem. I guess, you know, I'm looking at the size and shape and dimensions of those patios, and you know, it's pretty obvious from your furniture layout that they're not big patios.
No.
And if they could all be slightly bigger, I think everybody would win. But you know, that's just,
it's a communal versus individualist kind of point of view of people that are living there. So.
They can still be communal because you do have that center little space with the little circle and so forth, and that's all very nice. And they can be as communal as they want. They can all go sit on one person's patio for that matter. I really don't care, and I don't know, and that's totally beyond all of our control. But all I'm saying is that, you know, for the point of view of individual livability, personally, I would rather have a little bigger patio without one sitting right across from me. So just my observation and opinion here. But I think that's all I have to say. Other than that, I mean, I'm sounding negative, other than it's a great project, but that is really my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And lastly, I'll just make my comments, and thank you again for your presentation. And I agree with what has been said by our panel members. I would like to speak a little bit more to the landscape. I have some concerns actually over the tree selection, especially given the choice of that spruce in the center of your courtyard space or muse space. I appreciate the gesture to this shared possibly Christmas tree, but you know, everyone doesn't celebrate Christmas and it's one time a year. And given the space is small and you have dark finishing on the buildings and putting in an evergreen tree, I would encourage you to contemplate changing that and putting in a deciduous tree. I think then you will get more light into your buildings in the winter when we want more light. And you'll have a potentially greater contrast with the siding of the building instead of the darker evergreen. And you'll also get a little bit of a nicer canopy kind of falling over that muse if you pick wisely with a deciduous tree. So, and as well, I think the selections of trees you have going down the middle of your walkway, I'm concerned they might be too big of trees for that space. Yes, I know they're columnar red maples, but the red maple is generally seen out as a street tree, and it will get quite tall, and it would like to have a lot more sun than it may get there. So I think my comment overall is just to reconsider the tree selection, and is it the right tree for the right spot, given this is such a small little space, and it is very, I really appreciate that you have that nice muse, and that central tree focus is a lovely notion, but I would just like you to reconsider the trees you've chosen and if they're the right, correct tree for that space. And also that I appreciate your reference that you've used a native plant palette, or primarily. That's great to use. We like to see our native plants being used, but I think this palette, has some native plants, but it's not primarily native. So I don't like that I'd like you to be more honest in your portrayal of what you're putting in the plant palette, because we don't all know our plant species. So that's all my comment. And I do agree too with, I was concerned with the two patio spaces in the middle muse and the privacy issue that Tony did bring up, especially because of the slight elevation change. So one is looking into the other. And so looking for ways to improve the privacy of those units, I think would improve the overall project. So I don't know, that's all I have to comment on.
Can I respond to this a little bit, or?
Sure.
So first of all, I think great observation and a great idea. This the Piscia glauca that we have in the middle, we were originally thinking about using Serbian spruce, which is even skinnier, just to have more of a form of a central focal point. And we kind of argued a lot about what species to be used there. And I kind of agree with you that maybe one with canopy, with allowing more open space in the middle, reducing, because it did have a large soft understory planting, especially to create separation in the space as well. So, but I think that's a point that could be considered. And even the bow hall, which are rather tall columnar trees here, they could be used, they could be substituted with Japanese maples and something of a very smaller scale. Idea was to create enough separation in the landscape so that relative privacy of patio spaces movements are maintained. But I think those are good points. As far as your comment about native plants is concerned, I would politely like to kind of disagree there. We've used quite substantial amount of native planting, even if the numbers, as you said, could or the number of types of plants could be different, because yes, there's a wide palette, but when you see the overall areas, you see Kinnikinnics, you see Mahonia aquifoliums on either side, you see Vauxinium ovatums, you see Holodiscus discolor separating, you see some more Kinnikinnics on the road. There's some native roses as well. So we used quite substantially. I know it's not 100%, and we've augmented with a wide variety of other species as well. But idea was to create a structure, a spine, a body that establishes itself fast and occupies a majority of the area. But point well taken, and we will try and accommodate as much as possible of native, especially even in the areas other than what they've been used for.
Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, actually, I didn't mean to say that I don't have a problem with the number of native plants or whether you add more or less. I just wanted to make a point that from my opinion, you have some, you don't have predominantly native plant palette. And so it's misleading to any panel member or anyone who may consider that important. And that's all. So I'm not saying I want you to add more native plant palette. I'm just asking you to be honest in your portrayal of what you're putting in here. And that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin.
Oh, he's muted.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to jump in here and because Kate made some really good comments there, and I agree. Having I love evergreen trees, but having it as a feature in that courtyard probably isn't the best thing to do. And I think that maybe, and I love Serbian spruce, but I think maybe those should be maybe in the 4 trees in the laneway, and the trees in the courtyard should be deciduous, whether they're dogwood or my favorite, silk trees. Kate knows that one. But definitely deciduous trees so that it lightens it up in the winter months. I think that would be really good. But I want to see evergreen trees on the site. whether they're on the front or the rear, but I think the rear is probably the best spot for them. But yeah, I just wanted to lay that out there, because I think that central tree is the one that's going to be the key tree to the site, and having something that's really like a canopy tree that could spread out and you can have chairs underneath it. I really feel that should be the key of the whole project, is that. So
And I
throw that in there.
And I totally agree with that. So
okay, well, thank you. So thank you everyone for your thank you for the presentation, and thank you everyone for your comments.
Can we still stay, or can I say a couple things still too?
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we had a discussion in the office about the central tree, right? Whether it's deciduous or coniferous or whatever. Just a couple of pros and cons, and they're all good points. So in regards to the parking or the building setback a little bit, on the rear parking lot, we actually had the parking oriented perpendicular, the stalls to the lane, which saved us, allowed us to move the buildings back. But engineering at the time did not favor that, even though we do have a little bit wider part of the lane for a couple of the sites. But I guess we'll see how that pans out that way. The only downside is it doesn't allow us to have any gating across the rear of that, which, you know, the neighborhood's still a little bit dicey. I mean, I used to live on Nickel Street for many years when I first moved here. The other thing is the other lot, the two buildings next to us weren't the best examples to show, because some of the other buildings, there's a couple of them that are actually further to the road than our project is. They may be only single story or story and a half with pitch roofs and stuff. But the building to the south of us is just a parking lot, so it's not something we really want to see either. So they're kind of inverse to what we have, and obviously all the new projects that may happen on the street could end up going back to having parking back off the lane. So
sorry, Raymond, may I just, Madam Chair, I just wanted to interject here, just because we had a little bit of a later start and we do have to get through another item on the agenda. Sorry, Raymond, I don't mean to cut you off, but I appreciate you're trying to provide the information in response. But really, I think the DAP has given their comments, and we'll formulate recommendations at the end. And certainly any follow-up, keep your responses, the thoughts you have, don't lose them, because we'll work through those together with you and in terms of resolving the panel's recommendations. So just in the interest of time, can you save those thoughts, and we'll continue to discuss those with you directly. Thank you. Just want to make the comment. Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Lania. Okay, well, moving along, I believe I heard 3 recommendations. So one from Jason and Tyler and others. So I'm thinking we could say to look at ways of reducing the front yard setback variance, or is that the right way of saying it? Yeah, to reduce the amount of variance needed. To look at ways of reducing the front yard setback. So if I keep it kind of open and simple like that, okay. And then number 2 is to look at ways to improve the privacy between the 2 units, and then we'll let the designers decide whether they look at changing that back patio and removing it, or maybe looking at ways of screening or doing something to improve the privacy between the 2 units. Does that sound okay? And then thirdly, to reevaluate the tree selection, especially that central tree, and to consider choosing a deciduous tree instead of evergreen. Does that sound okay, those 3?
Well, the only thing I would say is just really minimalize the second one, that just look at the privacy. The privacy of the units. You don't have to get into detail about moving the buildings, because that was in the first one. So I would say look at making sure the privacy between the units is concerned.
Okay.
Something really, it doesn't have to be identified really. I think it just has to be that they have to address it, and we don't have to mention how they need to do it.
Okay, great. So is that good? Our Lori got everything. So the 3 I'll just review one more time. 3 recommendations: to look at ways to reducing the front yard, the variance required for the front yard setback, and to consider the privacy between units, and 3, to look at the tree selections, and in particular the central tree, and changing it to a deciduous tree. Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, Tony.
I was just going to make a motion. Is it acceptable?
Oh, good. Yes, I was going to ask who would like to make a motion to accept the project as presented with the 3 recommendations.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Exactly.
And seconder, Kevin, and all in favor? Great. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight. And
Welcome.
thank you again. So Sadie, I guess it's your turn to present the next project on our agenda, DP 001268.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody can hear me? Okay. So the next development permit application is for 5485 and 5495 Godfrey Road. DP 1268 is for a 9-unit ground-oriented multifamily development consisting of 2 buildings at the subject property. The subject property is located on the east side of Godfrey Road, adjacent to its intersection with Big Bear Ridge and Grace Place. It is zoned R6, low-density residential, and is designated neighborhood in the official community plan. It falls within Development Permit Area 9 for multifamily development and does not fall within DPA 7 for North Terminal Avenue area, as it had stated in the distributed staff design comment. As such, only the general development permit area design guidelines apply to the proposed development. There are no proposed variances. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sadie. So I'll ask the presenter for the applicant to say their name for the record, and you're welcome to share your screen.
Hi, everyone. Joyce Troost. It's a miracle I have a project without a variance. So why don't I go ahead and share? Let's see here. Okay, just everyone can see the screen. Great. Okay, so we have an interesting, we call this a corner site, but an intersection site with all fronting along Godfrey, but we've got 2 other roads sort of intersecting here. And what we've tried to do is create a very nice community townhome project that integrates nicely into this primarily single family, single story and 2-story community area. In this particular project, I have no variances. We are under our floor area, our lot coverage. We're proposing 9 townhomes and have parking for it, and also community amenity space. So I'll move on to the site plan here and zoom in a bit. So we gain access off of Godfrey here on the driveway. We've focused a majority of the townhomes here facing Godfrey Road as a way to, bring architecture to the road, connect those front doors to the sidewalks, and give them a presence along that roadway. We also have a secondary building where the main front door of Unit 6 is along Godfrey, but then the remaining front doors of the units actually are off the driveway and access lane. I should go back to the previous building 1 here. The primary front doors are off Godfrey for the architectural and physical connection, but in terms of driving, we actually will be parking behind the units themselves, and then there is access through a door here or through the garage. So it's an interesting housing model because we actually have 2 front doors, but I think the focus, they're both used, I think, accessed for different reasons. One more for the public and the connection, and then the back one really more for maybe the smaller community itself and gaining access to the amenities around the site. We have a community garden, and Brad's plan does a much better job of just sort of getting into the details and nitty gritty of what we were presenting there for the community. a natural play space here in the corner, and then a trash area for the community or the group itself. We have a few extra space. The townhome here only has parking for the units in the building, one space, and then the remaining visitor parking spaces would be here, surface parking. Each unit is 3 stories. Sorry, three bedrooms. And I'll go to the next slide here. Actually, I'm going to switch over to SketchUp. Everyone can see the SketchUp model? Okay, great. So this is a shot along Godfrey Road. And you can see that the intention was to really create a streetscape, add some rhythm and pattern, and also integrate. It's a bit of a more contemporary project, but we've integrated in a slightly sloped pitch roof and stepped the roof lines themselves. So we do add a lot of interest. We're adding a lot of scale, a lot of patterning, using all those ideas of color and texture, materials that you would find in a lot of single family homes in this area. And we have these nice concave front entries and porches that allow people to sit out there, gain connection with the roadway and the street, connect to the community and the sidewalk, and also use them as access. So we're creating walkable communities. Like this would be a great example of a project that, we can see that access. And then this is a shot here of the end unit where we flipped the front door actually to face Godfrey itself, even though this is actually the side of the building. And I'll rotate along here. It's on building 2, we're using a very similar language. There's a slightly different roof line just based on how the units are coming together. But you do get a different, along the roadway here, a different perspective or look of each building type itself. And as I rotate around the side here, you'll see the rear access. There's opportunities for landscaping and driveway, lots of opportunities for planting and greenery happening on this site. And then shift around here, you'll see the front doors into these units and the parking that would be as you enter the site here. I think that's it for me. I will flip back over to Brad's site plan and then let him speak to that. Okay, Brad, you're up.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So as Joyce was mentioning, this has a lot of opportunities for planting and open space, and we've capitalized on that in a number of ways. One of the things that we're showing on the design is that we've put a continuous rain garden kind of effect across the front, and we've located some larger scale trees on the frontage, and then smaller, more intimate scale trees closer to the building. We have a central driveway that comes into the project, and we've put some permeable paving in the core of it. And we have also incorporated a strolling path or a walking path from the corner into the site and across the special paving and into the naturalistic play space, which would have, it's small, it's meant for smaller children, but it has a little tiny play structure made out of natural materials, and then some logs and some stones around it to feel like a nature play area. And we have also incorporated hedging along the rear property line, and then in the upper right-hand corner, we've got a community garden space for this little development, and each of the units would have their own little garden box, and there's this tool shed and garden storage shed that kind of separates it from the parking and creates a kind of an intimate space for that area. Some opportunity for some fruit trees, and then additional coniferous tree screening between this development and the other adjacent development. Using a palette of plant material that's a good percentage of natives, but also some ornamental species that will do well for this kind of project where we have these individual doorways into the rear of these units, and then they will have their little trees, flowering trees and ornamental trees for each of the units and their patios. And I think that's pretty much it for the landscape design on this one.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else you would like to? Oh, no. Okay, good. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I will start with, does anyone on the design panel have any questions for staff before we begin our comments? No? Okay, I'm seeing no one. All right, well, I'm going to go in the opposite direction from the last presentation, and I will call on Tony first to make his comments. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellent presentation. Thank you for that. Excellent design. The effort to deal with the streetscape, I think, is as good as I've ever seen, and commend the applicant on the attention to that aspect of the project. The rest of the spaces in and around the buildings, I think, are quite nicely done and nicely landscaped and so forth. Similar, I guess, to the previous application, maybe it's me, I got a thing about private outdoor space. There's obviously, for obvious reasons, very little for each of these units. There is some, I appreciate, it's kind of nominal. But I guess it's there, and I guess the saving, offsetting factor is that you do have some communal spaces to offer to offset that aspect of it. So I guess that kind of takes care of my concerns about private outdoor space. So all in all, I think this is a very, very nice little project, and I commend you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. And Councillor Tyler Brown, would you like to make a comment?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the presentation. No real comments. I just note the one staff comment about the orientation of one unit. I can sort of see the logic there, but if that's possible, but I understand there'd be other design challenges as well. Other than that, I think it's an excellent project. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. And Ken, would you like to go ahead?
Okay. I think that, I agree with everybody. I like the project. When I looked at the drawings and the elevations and perspectives and the choice of materials and the variety and the articulation was very good. So when I went to the site, though, all I see was these big, huge trees surrounding the site. And I don't see any recognition of, I don't know, being new to the panel. Does the city allow a developer clear cut the lot? Or do you have to recognize that there are trees that are at least could be second growth? Some of them maybe third growth, but they're pretty big, massive evergreens surrounding the site. And I don't see any recognition in the landscaping plan or, everything is new, brand new. And I would like to see, certainly you would destroy that neighborhood if you took on all those big evergreens surrounding the site. And so I'd like certainly the designers and landscape people to consider. I know in other communities, cutting down a big tree is a no-no, especially if it could be up to 2 feet in diameter. So that was my main concern about respecting what's there on the site now.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I wonder if the applicant would like to comment on that regarding, because I do know you would have to do a tree management plan for this project.
Madam Chair, if I can maybe partially address that question, and then perhaps Brad might have some comments to add as well. Just by way of introduction, my name's Scott Mack. I'm a registered professional planner, just providing sort of coordination for this project for the owner. We did certainly talk about the existing mature trees on the site. And certainly as a starting point, we looked at whether or not it was going to be feasible. At the end of the day, given the size of the site and the overall intention with the project, there was one, actually the largest mature coniferous tree, essentially sort of right up into the northeast corner of the site, roughly where the community gardens are located. That on initial review, we talked about potentially trying to keep, because it was cited in a way that we could potentially work around it in our early discussions. However, we ended up, because of some concerns, we had an arborist come out and take a look at it, and he indicated that it was in a state of decline, and recommended that, in particular, if the site was going to be developed, given the impact associated with that work, that the tree would likely need to be removed. And so at the end of the day, ultimately it came down to a scenario where, again, given the site coverage with the buildings and the parking and the access and the need and desire to accommodate for the various amenities, it just wasn't feasible to work around any of that existing vegetation.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I don't know if Brad, if you want to add anything to that comment, or.
It's difficult to develop these types of projects around fully mature trees, and in this instance, the trees weren't in great condition from my recollection of the arborist's review. And I think it was a decision, like when you have these very large coniferous trees and you try and put dwelling units like this around them, then they become a hazard problem. And I think that's the worry that, and certainly if we were able to do it, like the one that we contemplated trying to save, but when it came back as being in declining health, it just became like a worry that if we did go to huge efforts to accommodate that tree, and it would be huge efforts because it would require, special type of floating paving and all sorts of things, that in the end we would end up with just a hazard problem, and the tree would have to come down for the safety of the new residents of the site. So that's where this one went anyway, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Ken, I don't know if you have any further questions regarding that right now.
The only thing then my concern would be the community garden is in the wrong location. You can't have a community garden surrounded by neighboring evergreen trees and hopefully being a successful community garden. The trees just suck up all the nutrients and you will have nothing in the garden. And I've learned that from experience.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken, for your comments. And moving along, Kevin, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Very, very nice project. There's very little I have concerns about it. I really like how, Joyce, how you cited the buildings, and yes, what you commented on about variances, I think is normally you always ask for about at least 2 or 3 variances on your projects. so I just would say that it's nice to see a project where you're not asking for variances. The form and character, the siting, everything is spot on for me. I really like it. Really everything. My only concerns are related to the landscape concept, and Brad, you did a great job with how you used the density of the palette, the hardscapes, how you meandered the walkway through to the natural playhouse area. I think everything there works really, really well. I agree with Ken there that the evergreen trees, it appears that you really haven't replaced enough of them. I think there should be more evergreen trees on the property, and the ways that you can increase the density of that. You have mostly deciduous trees on at least looks like there's mostly deciduous trees on the property. But other than that, I really like the project, and yeah, I like it. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. And lastly, Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I won't belabor the point. I do really like the project as well. I think you've done a nice job of squeezing everything onto the site and siding the buildings. Like Tyler, I had noticed that one of the city comments was about rotating Building 6. I don't know if I share the same concerns to that extent, and I'm sure there's reasons more reasons that I'm sure you know better than us why that would be problematic. I could see an opportunity to potentially continue the rhythm that you've established along the front 5 units, using sculpting that little gray box potentially facing the street, but not necessarily having to redo everything. Could help maybe create a little gateway or a little portal into the site, perhaps. But a minor point. Otherwise, thank you very much and nice job.
Thank you, Jason. And lastly, my comment, and I thank you for your presentation, and I agree with what has been said. I think you've done a great job of developing this property, and have managed to include a lot of uses into the landscape, and I really appreciate that. I will agree with Ken and Kevin. I think maybe the landscape architect could look at ways to introduce a few more evergreens into the tree palette, especially given the current context of the site. And also, I agree with the staff comment, but I'm not sure how you'll achieve this regarding the location of the natural play area, which I really appreciate that you've included. I think that's great, and just using logs and rocks, and that's wonderful. And even a small space like that, I think, brings a lot of value. But I can see the benefit of looking at ways to have the community garden and that space sort of be together, but I'm not quite sure how you could achieve that of looking at the site. But I think my recommendation would be to look at ways to do that, and you will do the best you can do. And also in considering the location of the community garden with the adjacent evergreen trees and the impacts they would have on the success of your community garden, as Ken nicely highlighted for us in consideration. And I see Kevin has a hand up. Yes, Kevin?
Yeah, I just forgot that I was going to mention, with respect to unit number 6, looking at ways to relate the facade better to the street. I forgot that one, and Jason brought it up, and I think somebody else brought it up as well. And I think even though it's a real small facade, I think there is ways that they can make it blend in better with the first building there, units 1 to 5. So I think there's definitely ways that they can look at to improve that. It doesn't take much. It's going to be very minimal, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. Thanks.
Okay, great. So I think we have just a few recommendations. So that the one that Kevin just brought up, I'll ask the panel if we would like to make that a recommendation to look at ways of improving the facade of Unit 6 to reflect the rhythm or design or pattern of the other units facing the street. Does that work? Okay, and then number 2, to increase the number of evergreen trees in the planting palette. And number 3, to look at ways to relocate the community garden, or make a combine the community garden and natural play, or I guess that's maybe what I would say.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
Could I get a clarification on the rationale for that?
I'm
not disagreeing, but I just want to be clear that before I vote for it.
So, well, one that Ken brought up, that the community garden is next to adjacent large evergreen trees, and so its success will be impacted by those trees. Yeah, and then just the staff brought up the comment of considering ways to bring those two uses together, and I think there is a nice harmony there if it's doable, but it might not be doable. And I think, Brad, did you want to make a comment to that?
I obviously worked on this quite a lot to try to achieve the client's goal of providing some kind of outdoor gardening space for the residents and also to provide the play space. And I had tried it in the opposite places. I put the play area over on the other side and I put the community garden in the corner. And I just felt that it just really didn't work very well in terms of for security for the kids in one thing. And then also I thought, give the little garden area more sunshine or give the kids some sunshine. And I kind of thought maybe I let the kids have the sunshine. But I feel like trying to combine the two together would be very difficult because they're separated essentially by the surface parking. Mm-hmm. And there's not really much of a way to change the location of the surface parking because it has to orient to the driveway. Now I'm open to ideas and I can try and explore it one more time, but I really did go through an exercise of trying variants on this, and this is sort of the best that I could come up with. And the existing conifer trees, they are a factor of real life, and that's the way they are. And if we do put these vegetable garden boxes in this location, then obviously I'd put the liner underneath them and keep them separated, raised. They'd be raised and not in the ground. But there may be some latitude to modify that area in itself, right? But it's hard to know now. It'll only come clear once construction begins, whether we can move the shed and reorient the boxes.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Brad. And just as a reminder, and I see your hand, Kevin, that we're making recommendations and in the hopes that you consider and move forward. And we also acknowledge you may not be able to do what we recommend. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. When I looked at that and I read the staff comments and I looked how Brad designed the landscape concept, I looked how at least where the community gardens were with the linear design and how that all flowed together. I thought that was brilliant. And I looked at the natural playhouse area. It's confined, it's secure, it's great. Like the kids can't go anywhere. I just thought that the layout was really well, and like what Brad's been working on this project for months, and we only look at this for a few days, and he's probably gone through all the formulations of how this can work. And I we could all look at different ways that we can work this, but all I can say is that recommendation, I wouldn't support that recommendation. I think the way Brad designed this, I think is, I looked at different formulations to figure out how I can get this to work, and I couldn't figure out a better one. I thought what Brad has done is really well, and I wouldn't support that recommendation to consider either of those two recommendations. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I'd like to add a comment though, with my experience. Yes, we like to have our children secure, but we also want them visible. And so this is a very tucked away spot. And so that could be a negative for some people in this dwelling. It would be for me. It's tucked way back there in the corner. So there's not a lot of eyes on it, which is what we would prefer, is a lot of eyes on the space where children are playing. So that is something to consider. Also, there's a lovely harmony between gardening and children and children's play, and they have a huge interest in that activity. And so I can see the harmony of having those two spaces be one. I recognize though that the site has all its constraints and that might not be possible, but there is a lovely harmony between that. My children love participating in the gardening, and to have that close proximity would be ideal in that parents can be working in the garden, kids can be playing, they can come back and forth, and they don't have to transect through the parking lot. So so I don't know, panel members, is it a recommendation or not?
Kate, here's the thing. You can leave the recommendation. I'll look at it again. I mean, there may be some opportunities to change it a little bit. I'm not afraid to try to look at it again. And if it doesn't work, I mean, obviously we'll go to council and I'll explain that it doesn't work. But I'll try. I'll definitely try. There might be opportunity to shift some parking to the end of the drive aisle and then move some of those stalls closer to the play area, take away the stalls closer to the play area. I don't know. I have to look at that. But I'm not afraid to look at it.
Okay. So Kevin, what do you think? Can I leave it as a recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's something that could be voted on. I'll if everybody supports it, I'll support it. But I just feel that Brad has probably spent more, like way more time on this than us, and I think he has a very efficient site. And but I'll still support that as a recommendation.
Okay, so I'll make that our third recommendation, to look at ways of combining the community garden and natural play space. I'll just leave it sort of like that. Is that okay? Okay. Oh, I see Scott has a question.
Just very quickly, if I can, Madam Chair, just wanted to add the one sort of minor thing that we can potentially play with a little bit here is we do have one more parking stall than is required. And so depending on, and obviously Brad's looked at this in detail, but certainly that's one option that we can explore. Is we certainly don't want to go any further than that, because the approach to not have any variances was very deliberate. The site had to be rezoned, and we essentially made a commitment to the neighborhood that because this was a very different project, we didn't want to push the zoning and then come in with a bunch of variances as well. So we're very focused on not introducing any variances, but we could look at removing one of the provided parking stalls.
Okay, great. Well, we'll just leave it as a recommendation and we'll see what happens. Thank you. Yes, Tony.
Would it be helpful, given what Scott just said, if we put in a recommendation that the applicant consider removing the surplus parking stall to improve landscaping?
Sure, I think that sounds great. Should I make that recommendation 4 or in combined with the third one?
I don't know. Maybe
okay.
Maybe it's not necessary.
I think we should combine it. That if necessary, that we have to remove a parking stall.
Okay.
And I'm sure Tyler would be in favor of that too.
Okay, so the recommendation number 3 will be.
I'm not the problem though, Kevin.
Yeah.
If there is a problem, there are difference of opinions.
Yeah. To consider removing one of the surface parking stalls to better improve the connection between the community garden and the natural play area, and possibly relocating them. Right. Okay. So do I have a motion to accept the project as presented with those 3 recommendations? Okay, I see Kevin's hand and a seconder, and Ken. Okay, thank you very much. And all in favor? Okay, I see we're all in favor. Thank you very much again for your presentation. We really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great,
and I believe we have no other business to attend to. Is that correct? So I can call this meeting. Do I have to ask if everyone wants to adjourn the meeting, or do I? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you're supposed to, but it doesn't matter. Great job, Kate. You did a great job.
So all in favor of adjourning the meeting? Great. Thank you very much. And I don't know if there's any other discussion. We're still recording for a couple minutes and then it will be offline. I think everyone is good. Okay, excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah,
thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.